Frank here, Wrench Nation Service Life. I appreciate you hanging out here. We decided to do this 4-part series. We hope you guys can get some value on how to sort of have as much success as you can. I mean, success is a funny word when it comes to anything. I mean, we're always carving things out and making our mistakes. But as you guys know and are aware, as a part of the Wrench Nation brand, both TV, radio, podcasts, all three arenas, along with social media, you can imagine I've made a ton of mistakes and I'm always looking to hone that in. On this first part series, we decided let's tackle radio. Some of you are on the fence about radio. Maybe some of you have tried radio to no success. And I'm honored. Our first guest that's going to be joining us is Matt Allen from the Bumper to Bumper radio show, Major Market Radio here in the Phoenix market, which is a top radio TV broadcast market in the country. Matt, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
that's
we're going to talk.
Definitely a top market. I think we're top 8, I think.
We are, when you consider radio being small, medium, and large, we're definitely a large market. And as we go, we'll talk about how that differs. Some folks may be catching this, and they're from smaller markets. And of course, Greg Buckley's here. Buckley's Auto Care.
What's up, Frank?
Hey, many know
Matt.
Greg Buckley. You've got two shops, Wilmington, Delaware.
Yep.
And what was the new one on the beach?
On the beach in Millsboro. Well, we're a little off the beach, but I still call it the beach.
Yeah, I see you on the beach. You're on the beach.
I know, man. I like walking that beach. I'll
And of course,
drive that 10 miles.
Yeah, Matt Allen, also with Virginia Auto, award-winning automotive service center, a staple in the community. And Matt, about 2 years ago, just to let folks know, you did launch up sort of bought a business and made it buku better, import car specialist. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually right at COVID 2020 was when we opened. It's been a very soft opening for 4 years, but we're quality over quantity. I would say we're very low cost of entry at this facility. So I'd rather build up slow and steady. Obviously having trouble finding perfect technicians and the right technicians. So
oh, you said perfect. Oh my God. How about a technician?
Know, right? That'll fog the mirror, right? But no, we're slowly growing this business, and of course the mothership, Virginia Auto Service, nearly 30 years in business. That just hums along like a hummingbird, so to speak, for the most part.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think a lot of our folks listening from a multi-store perspective, many have dived into radio, and we'll get to that. But I want to focus really as Greg Buckley is getting ready to enter in the arena. He's waited patiently for a really good time slot, a 30-minute show. As we go about this, the intent is to not only sort of educate from some of the things that we've been doing in the past, but also help Mr. Buckley come up with maybe some concepts, pre-production. What's the show look like? And then also covering the post-production, which is really important. In fact, as a part of this series, we're going to move on. Our next part 2 is going to be about podcasting. And of course, radio, podcasting, they all go hand in hand. But designing a show that really is focused around the clients that you're trying to attract. I mean, that's the sweet spot. Any form of marketing that we do, there should be intent. We shouldn't be just throwing stuff on the wall about who am I trying to attract. Matt Allen mentioned the import car specialist outfit that you have. That's really selective to the European market, and you're designing that business to acquire the European market. And so we're going to talk about how that relates to radio. We're also going to discuss radio marketplace do's and don'ts. We're going to do our best there, because sometimes the do's turn into a don't, and maybe we didn't realize it, or
turns into a did.
Right, or we did it, and and then the don'ts. Ironically, the don'ts didn't work for a while, but then all of a sudden, sort of parlays into, well, now that's a do. How do we evolve the content of our show? And then certainly, I'm cautious how I say fan base. We're not, I mean, I think we're all rock stars in this industry, but really we're sharing the journey with folks on our platforms regarding radio, but how do I harness that fan base, right? I want to be careful, but that client base that we're really grooming. So first point is designing a show. Greg, let's talk about your endeavor. The big question is why? Let's get some insight, because right now I'd like to start off with designing this show. What do you have in mind for?
Well, I've always, Frank, as long as you know me and all the content I have online through my YouTube channel and everything I get, I've always been about teaching and showing and being transparent and opening up our industry to the client base, but also not getting into the weeds. I like the fact that we can share information. You want to call it good tips, good auto care tips. You want to do interviews with subject matter experts on safety. The motorist, I look at it as a motorist, not not a car, not a car owner, but a motorist. And a motorist has different needs throughout the driving journey. Are their seats adjusted properly? Are their mirrors adjusted properly? These are all things that I'd like to share because, one, they involve saving lives just as much as a well-running car that doesn't break down in the middle of a highway traffic jam. So I've always had the intent. The name I had was Drive Safe, Drive Smart. It's been with me for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe, just hide in the background. And, the opportunity came my way to work with the #1 news radio outlet here in Delaware, and they cover the entire state. Now that I do have 2 locations, one in the north end of the state and one in the south end of the state, I can effectively cover most of the client base. And this particular client base is more mature. Any news outlet is going to have a more mature audience who are able to, I think would appreciate the inside information or the tips that I offer, and not get into, well, how do you fix a water pump on a 2020 Chevy Impala?
Yeah.
They're not there for that. They're there for education.
So let's establish this as we're going to dive in, and we're going to get deeper. And with all due respect, Matt Allen has to chime in, because it sounds like you're giving this more of a tips oriented. How to? Is this going to be a call-in style show, Greg?
Well, I have options of calling in, and I also have pre-recorded options. I could do either or. And, for 30 minutes, I get to talk about what's happening locally, what's going. I could do the shop. I think I don't want to sound like I'm going to be a generic, just open up the mic and let it all spew out. I think the target is educating the client base or the listeners, and having them have a quality voice on the air that resonates well, or they understand, they get to know. So,
okay. So with that said, I'd like Matt Allen's take. I can tell you right out of the gate, just from my experience, not Holy Grail, 30 minutes, call in, almost not going to happen. But first, before we get to Matt Allen, Jeff Rudnick, Pit Crew.
Hello.
Hey,
what is happening? Thanks for joining us. My understanding is you had some teeth work done.
I did, and to me it looks a little funny, but I think I'm sounding okay. So
you're
I think
looking
it's
good.
Looks funny though.
You're looking good. I mean, we all look funny on these Zooms anyway, so don't feel bad.
That's right.
Just to get
yes,
our
Matt
audience,
Allen, it has been a long time.
Get our audience just caught up. Jeff, just give a quick introduction, and then we're going to get back to the points of Buckley's 30-minute radio and some tips on that. Jeff, tell the people who you are, who you be.
Thank you. Yeah, Jeff Rudnick with Pit Crew and Bloom Loyalty, and we specialize in embedding automotive repair shops into the DNA of the community so deeply that that the customers are drawn to them because they know who they are, respect who they are, and turn them into icons of their community, both from
icons. I love
community
that.
From a community outreach standpoint, and also from a business leadership standpoint. So yeah, that's who we are and what we do.
Excellent. We were just discussing to kind of regroup. Greg is getting ready to do a 30-minute show that wants to be the authority, automotive under hood, but also wants to entertain some value behind, expert guests. And before you came on, Jeff, I said, hey, we got to talk to Matt, because right now Frank is not feeling a call-in show on 30 minutes. It's too crowded. Matt, you do a call-in show. What's the challenges?
Well, the thing is, it's not 30 minutes because, and now I don't know the makeup of it, but I have an hour. That hour is really 42 minutes with really 3 breaks, 15, 30, 45. So you start to dive into that. Now, if you don't have to do commercials at the 15-minute, at the side of the hour, so to speak, the 15 or the 45, you could probably get a couple calls in there and make that happen.
Yeah, so that's something, Greg, to consider. What are your thoughts right now?
Well, it's actually a 23-minute show. That's how much time is there with all the things. But I control the entire time. I mean, it'll be my ads running. It'll be my phone number being given out. So really it's straight time. And like I said, I can go live if I desire to, but I also can have pre-recorded and have that quick 10, 15-minute interview along with, items of, of interest, with TSPs.
Can you sell ads, Greg?
I can sell ads. Yeah. I mean, I believe that time is mine. I can have music if I want. I mean, you're walking in, putting down your $500 and going, okay, I'm going to have a show on this.
So
you're wanted.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because I collected some tips from some guys that I was working with in previous years doing this, and some success we've had is taking like your, the if you're going to co-market with some other local businesses like you and I have discussed, Greg, you can actually entice them to want to advertise in a couple of those slots.
True.
And help pay for the show. So Greg's Japanese Auto did a show, and they ended up getting popular enough where they kept a ton of ads for themselves. It was a full hour show every Saturday, but they were able to pay for most of it by selling ads.
Yeah. Matt, you were going to say something, Matt.
I don't know. So you basically, it's more of a question and then a follow-up, but you're going to be the first half hour of an hour, I'm assuming, or maybe the second half hour. So you get like maybe 3 or 4 minutes after the top or the bottom of the hour, so to speak, until 3 or 4 minutes before the next hour.
I'm at the top of the hour. Well, after the top of the hour, and I'll run to the end. Yeah.
So you come on about 3.5 minutes after the top of the hour and probably break at about 27 minutes or something like that. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like that. So for me, so my hour is a hour. It's the first quarter segment is me just talking about whatever I want to talk about. But you've got to do something that's going to entice phone calls if that's what you want to do. Or we invite text messages and phone calls. And I usually get 13, 15 callers a weekend at least. Something like that. When you say, Frank? In that neighborhood.
And I'm just chomping on the bits to jump on because Matt, this is critical. Within a 30-minute period, remember, your phone calls can take place, following that show. For those live shows, of course, Greg, you're busy. You're probably going to do a lot of recorded. But Matt, you're doing some of that. They reach you at the shop, which is ideally what maybe you want, or.
Well, yeah, we want to refer to the shop, but Greg said something earlier that I want to have experts come in. And the thing that I think you need a mind shift, Greg, and I'd be willing to talk with you off of this, but you're the expert if it's your show, not anybody else. That's got to be your first mindset, because you don't want to come in and bring in people to be the expert and they go, oh yeah, that guy on the radio, he always has these experts come in. No, you want them to think of you as the expert. So, so you can then, and then you have to pick your audience. I mean, and on the radio, like for me, I don't get to pick my audience. Your audience is whoever's listening.
Right.
So you've got to, what I've found over the years, I've been doing it 13 years now, but you've got to find out what their question is and then expand it so that you're talking to everybody, not just Sally with a Subaru. So Sally with a Subaru might call in with a question. And our thing is too, we're not telling them how to fix the car. We're telling them what we think, and we're talking about the symptoms. So in order to make sure you're talking to everybody, when Sally with the Subaru calls, I always have this is my famous little line, or when I'm talking about this, but you want to expand that. So you say, well, just like Sally Subaru, same as your Honda or your late model GMC Suburban, you've got an electric radiator fan under there and it's doing this or that, depending on what the question is. So you want to try and broaden that to talk to as many people as you can, not just somebody that's driving a Honda, and make them understand, the consumer question also applies to them too, even though they don't have a Subaru.
Well, what if it was not a case of having callers live? I mean, if it was a purely, I can't say infomercial type show, but it's more one way than, inbound calls. And you were able to use that 23 minutes to highlight, whatever particular situation is going on.
Sure.
Why is there high gas prices? Or remember, we're broadening out from not just a car owner, but a motorist and what they do, how they drive, that kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, maybe I missed the question in there. I'm sorry, I got a little distracted, but
no, that's okay.
But well, you got to. I mean, for me, I just find something that I think is interesting to talk about, whether it's a topic in the shop or something we're seeing. But in your case, if you're not going to do the call-ins, it's called theater of the mind. Okay. If I don't have people calling in with questions, I'll go every once in a while. People just don't call, and you can't have dead air. And in my case, I'm live. I don't have any post-production or pre-production. I just show up and I do. It's all in my head. There's nothing written down except for my breaks and my phone number.
Right.
So you've always got to have some content on standby. But if you didn't have people to call in, or it wasn't a call-in show, I would certainly have like a monologue or something you felt was important that might be engaging to consumers. And then you could use content from the shop, for example.
That's the goal. I mean, that's where I want to be specific at. If I need to talk to, if I have a need to talk to Toyota owners, or I can focus on a Toyota or a Honda, a specific repair that maybe has happened that's pretty common, or a brand new recall that's out, and explain why it's a recall. I mean, 23 minutes, I think I can consume that pretty well and still put out a quality show that people can resonate with. And, that, and then from there, that particular show, of course, gets distributed in other media points.
Did you always go unscripted, even in the beginning? Did you have more of an outline in the beginning?
Yeah.
I used to have an outline, but it's just too hard to follow, and you don't want to sound like you're reading.
And you got comfortable, and you've learned and figured it out, and have fun with it.
Oh yeah. It's easy to do now. It was challenging at first. I mean, we're on an ABC affiliate. I mean, we got to hit time marks. We've got to do certain things exactly on time. And it's I guess the number one news talk FM station here in Phoenix. But you've got to, I think if you're going to be on the radio, you've got to talk about what's going to engage people. You want engagement? Talking about technical service bulletin, Greg? I don't think anybody cares about that. Like for me, I talk about this weekend. I forgot what I came in on Saturday and said, but right now the theme is 100 degrees. So I might come in and welcome to Bumper Radio, blah, 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 give out the phone numbers to entice the call-ins. And then today I'm going to, I might say something like, oh, gee, I'm starting to see tire carcasses on the road. That means 100 degrees. And you start talking about the things that might be wrong with your car at 100 degrees. So now you're starting to touch everybody. And then in my case, it invites them in to call. And then, if I had a show where we didn't have callers, which we do occasionally, we might, I have a text message. Text message you can always save. And make up a question, or start to talk about something you're seeing in the shop that's a trend or something like that. Anything to get the engagement, to make you the expert in the room, not somebody else, not your guests, but you want to be the expert.
Yeah, that's a good point. Our show is sort of on the opposite realm, and it's really it's a lifestyle show. I mean, we will cover some tips, but because it is live, but it's highly post-produced, a lot of work in the background regarding booking guests, from anybody from Richard Rawlings to employee number 17 from the DeLorean company factory, right? Who's around that wants to talk about that story. I would say that's not a recommended platform, but I think you'll have elements of sharing the story. And I think pinging on what Matt is saying, it is critical. And if you're really good, you're going to tie in that headline to what's current, on fire, local for keywords. And we're not going to dive into the whole lot how you parlay radio to a website. Certainly you're going to have a connection to a website, and we may touch upon some basic points. But I think the biggest thing is, Matt's at a point where he started off with sort of a rhythmic template. He got comfortable with brand voice. You'll do the same. You want to remember that folks that are listening need to kind of have some semblance about the rhythm of what they hear every week. Of course, you're going to change up messaging. In this case, you may be talking about whatever's, in our case, is as Matt said, all things, hotter than a mug. Everything is breaking down, overheating stuff. So I'd recommend carve out, so you're disciplined, a template, and I'm going to make some suggestions for the template. At Matt, spot on. 80% of what we do is in the design of that grabbing headline. And in fact, it doesn't change regarding the marketability of our businesses. Now, we still have to have the bones of the offer. You still have to have the bones of what you're, going to offer by way of this attention grabbing tip. On that, I'd also recommend, and this is something that you can toy with, is testing different headlines in post-production. And again, you may not want to do a lot of heavy lifting there. I have some resources for you. Essentially, they're EVIT graduates that do an amazing job. They help me out. I don't have all the time for post, although I'm still involved. But my point is, a headline. What's the preparation for this show? Matt's gotten to a point, and I've worked with Matt. He's amazing. Gets in the studio, and you know what? It's like an instrument. I always go back to this marketing thing as an instrument. We've got to study the instrument. We definitely got to know our audience. We definitely got to understand what that message is going to be. But in sort of the post of this, where we're allowed, because it's not live or it's even not recorded, we're allowed in post to play around in that workshop and test things, because, Matt will tell you to live and breathe radio and the consistency. Now, you may record live is a heavy moving machine, right? It can be, because you may not be able to hit it live all the time. I'll send in my replays, but I'm a maniac and I'm live. It's getting, you would think it'd get easier after 8 years, but I enjoy the replays, or maybe producing something up that I can send in. But those are things that really, I think, while you're on air, the preparation for what you do via template is highly recommended. My headline, my discussions, how do I connect the audience? Now, everyone's saying, well, okay, everybody says speak to the audience and give them stuff they can relate to. That's not what I'm talking about, because most people listening to this or watching this understand they're going to flow that. When I say connect to the audience, is what do we do with that content in post? And Jeff, I'd like you to speak on this, because you see this often. Content can be evergreen, meaning we can design it to live as long as we can on the interwebs. And I'd like to discuss that before we get into the do's and don'ts. This would kind of lead towards building this fan base. Of course, we know Greg's going to have his show linked to his website. Greg's going to have a QR, reader on a postcard. All his advisors are going to be passing them out. Hey, shows this weekend, you got to catch Greg. He's going to do that guerrilla style one-on-one. But with radio, it's one on the masses. and then masses to others. And a lot of that takes place in how we post produce. At least that's what I've experienced building a platform. Let's talk about that, Jeff. Let's give Greg some ideas. How does Greg take this show and make it gain legs on some of the conventional marketing, i.e. on the internet?
So, not being completely an expert here in radio, but having done a little bit of it, I look at it this way. And I put it back sort of towards the complete customer care program that Greg has. You want to have a lot of different legs in that. So if he has a rewards program that has community outreach and fundraising. He has a rewards program that has a local business cross-pollinator. And any topic that he's going to talk about on the radio, of course, should be then in his blog, right? It should be in his social media. And it should certainly be talked about on the internet in that regard. I would take this, especially when he's doing his advertising, I would be talking about the wonderful things that are going, and on the show that he's doing at the shop right now, the fundraisers he's always involved with, the community outreach that he does, along with his connections with other local businesses. And I would make sure that those stories are being told on the radio and then also in his blog and on his social media, because we're seeing that consumers are connecting a lot more to the soul of the shop than they are to automotive repair per se. And if you talk to marketing companies across the country that do automotive specifically, especially if they're having a beer at a trade show afterwards, it can be difficult and challenging to get engagement in social media. So you want to talk about things that the consumers really care about, which is the community, the heart and the soul of the shop, the employees, celebrate the employees at the shop. And I would say that could even be a topic, Greg. You would, interview an employee every once in a while. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every other week or once a month. But then you would also then spotlight that person on your socials as well.
Almost like use the 23 minutes as more of like a commercial, it was say, or the
well, I just think that these are little pieces of what you would do. So you want to talk about like what we did at Greg's Japanese Auto. We actually produced 30-second commercials on every aspect of their unique selling points. So I talk about that in terms of the customer care program, the consumer and community loyalty rewards program that you have. But that sounds self-serving because I provide a lot of that, but I don't provide all of it. You were doing a ton of these things before I ever came along, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's all these unique selling points. So your ads should be geared around those unique selling points. Your involvement in the community, your connection to your other businesses. You could even spotlight, I wouldn't say an ad on an employee, but an interview with an employee and a spotlight on them. And we like to do it.
I don't want to cut you off, but I will. But I don't know about necessarily interviewing the employee, because now I don't know what the topic would be. Interviewing. Am I muted? No. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what the topic would be. Interviewing an employee, but if again, what are the people that are? I don't know when the hour is or anything, but who cares? I would just be blunt. Who cares about that employee? The people listening. What's the objective of the show? The objective of the show is to put traffic in your base. Yeah. So you got to get something to just going to engage them. So to interview the employee, you want to know about his kids and that they play soccer and all that stuff. That's all great, but who cares? To some degree, it's important. Don't get me wrong, it's important. But I would interview that. If I was going to bring an employee on, is to bring them on as they're the expert in my repair shop. This is Greg Jr. from Greg's Auto Repair, and he's the master auto technician. And Greg Jr., I'm just making up names, obviously. Yeah. Greg Jr., we've been with the temperatures coming up and the travelers to the beach this summer. What kind of repair problems are we seeing in the shop? And engage him that way to make, again, he's the expert. And that's what they want to hear about. If they're going to call into the car hour, if you will, they probably want to hear about the cars and some tips. And then in those cases, you're the expert. It's your show. probably don't need a commercial. I mean, you will. You're going to have a commercial, brought to you by, or
Right.
this is, this is Greg from Buckley's Garage, and located here and there, and you want some pre-recorded, maybe not even in your voice. Doesn't have to be in your voice. Could be in
because they're already listening to you.
Yeah, female announcer voice. Let somebody else tell everybody how good you are instead of yourself. And then just engage with them, because then they're going to be, that's the guy on the radio. Oh, if something broke down or something happened, oh, what's that guy on the radio? They're going to remember your name and start to get some brand recognition there.
It's funny. I mean, the shows that I will follow, and I've been listening to the station for a while now, and listening to the Sunday morning lineup, and they run anywhere from 15 minutes for like a religious type program, from every denomination you can think of, and then it gets into a finance block, and a couple of the shows that are personal finance, Dan White in particular, he takes one topic, maybe two, and he highlights that all through the show. And at his break, it's always a commercial. Well, he talks more about, hey, if you want to learn more, give me a call, and we go from there. And then he cuts back into the topic. At the end, he always, in his outro, he always says, give me a call, see this person at my location here or my location there, and we'll take care of you right away. It's a very good 23 minutes of content. He keeps it tight to two subject matters only, and he'll highlight them. And once in a while, the subjects will kind of like, dovetail one another. They'll be particular for one tax strategy, but there's 2 points to it. So he highlights both. And he does really good. He sounds great, and it's all pre-recorded. Now he goes to the studio to record, but I have this set up here, and I talk to the team or the station. You can send us anything you want. You can do anything you want. It's yours. So that's kind of like the format in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense for sure. My thing is just want to make sure you're engaging.
Yeah.
Again, you're doing it for a variety of reasons, but the bottom line is you want cars in the bay.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not going to.
Right?
You can't shy.
Matt,
Matt,
I didn't catch it. Do you advertise your own shop in your segments?
Well, mine's a little bit different. So our setup, it's bumper to bumper radio. It's an hour long, but there's a marketing company with that, and I work with the marketing company.
Okay.
So they have the radio, so it's bumper to bumper radio.com, and then there's a list of 17 or 18 shops on there that I quasi endorse by virtue of doing the show. So that's a long answer, but yes, my commercials run during the show. And then so do other repair shops, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 people running commercials. And then we're promoting the website. So then people will go to the website to find the shops that then pay to be on the website and pay to advertise during the show.
Okay, different gig.
Yeah, I mean, that's a directory. I mean, you're essentially, content. Why do we have this show? We're educating, informing. We're the authority, your go-to. Out of that, the business side of that is essentially creating a directory, a paid directory, of reputable shops that meet the criteria, right? That's the bones of of bumper to bumper radio, reputable, and those shops get involved. And so with you, Greg, I think I heard Matt say a couple of things that really is important. And one of those is you've got to be the go-to for the expert position. It's very easy, and I learned this sort of the hard way, to where you lose control of the format, and it'll happen without you even knowing it, or the format goes into this weird direction that didn't have the outcome. That's why I'm a big advocate in the beginning, until you get comfortable with, you already know your brand voice, but remember, the minute you get in front of a camera, the minute that you get behind a mic, we start to self-monitor. Howard Stern back in the day, it was goosing. Howard Stern was becoming and producers all day long said, Howard, stop it. You got character, be you. And that takes some time to just be you. The template will keep you comfortable and moving. So as Matt says, you definitely got to honor breaks, in this case, it's a 30-minute. You won't have top of the hour or bottom of the hour, and you'll get all those details. But the idea is I'm going to stick to the roadmap. One, I got a headline that's going to connect people. Like right now, we're not talking about weather a month ago, and you know this. Number two, I'm going to start, and in my mind, I'm saying, why am I interrupting these people? Why would they listen to me? You really got to get to it, because otherwise, what we've got on social media is our fan base. My aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my friends. Oh, Frank, we'll let him get away with it. We'll let Matt get away with it. But Joe and Jill Public, why is he interrupting me? There has to be the passion behind that headline. And what am I going to deliver? That should be a line item. Headline, right. Number two, headline. What I'm delivering. And then the back end is Matt is saying, and it's certainly Jeff, about how do I keep this business like I need cars in the Bay. I know that for the most part, the demographic of this station is talking to boomers. What's the connection? How are they driving? You've done a lot of these clinics, drive safe, drive smart. You're one step ahead about making that connection. So keep the template simple, because then it becomes secondary, and be careful, because radio truly, you really got to say, why am I interrupting these people? Because in our socials, in our personal life, and even our extended, the long lost cousin that's going to watch our Facebook Live, they're accepting. They may come on with a couple, remarks, but right out of the gate, you're establishing, that's Greg Buckley, Buckley's Auto Care. He is the go-to on that. And then I would add, you have to have some sort of exit. Where am I taking them? What am I asking them to do? Right. After they listened, and I think, unless I'm missing something, Matt, that was like 3 points. Headline, bones of what's going to grab them on really value driven, and then exit. Where am I taking? Matt, if I missed anything, chime in, please.
No, I don't think so. It's pretty much my format. Is you have your topic, whatever you want to just get on your soapbox and talk about. Yeah. And that can make or break the show. Actually, it can really trigger the calls. And then for me, it's just taking calls. I don't post produce. I don't do anything with it. I probably underutilize mine. I mean, I walk in there at 10:50, and the light goes on at 11:03 and 50 seconds, and I walk out the door at 11:57:50 when the microphone turns off, and I never look back. And I don't post produce. It doesn't, it goes up on the website and stuff, but I don't.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's raw, natural.
Yeah, it's real. And so, Frank, I mean, but of course, like, we're an hour. So we're like, at our bottom of the hour break, we're inviting the people, hey, my classic spiel, Bumper to Bumper Radio is here every Saturday from 11 to noon, but 24 hours a day, we're at bumpertobumperradio.com. You can go there and find a good shop in your neighborhood, or if you have a question, call them, or you can find me there or whatever. So you want to, have a place for them to go, you know. Especially maybe as you're dovetailing out of the show, hey, I'll be back next week, and in the meantime, visit buckleysgarage.com or whatever it is, and give us a call if you have any questions during the week.
Well, this is a question I have for you there, Matt. How do you and your group kind of keep keep in sync with you being the voice of a directory of bumper to bumpers or auto value, right?
No, it's nothing to do with that. That's just the name of the show. It's nothing to do with auto value. It's just bumper to bumper radio. It's just the name we came up with. Okay. So in our case, we just have kind of geographical areas where shops are have their focus, obviously around me, we're not going to have any. And then, Frank's up in Cape Creek, he's on there. So just various areas.
Okay. I mean, at one point, it was discussed that, I would be the voice of the Napa Auto Care BDG group around here, but we're very close in proximity to one another. And I never really thought about pursuing it, nor do I want to now, just because I think I could not stand that if one person said, hey, you're getting all the action out of this, instead of me, I'm not getting anything out of it. You need to, tweak it here, tweak it there.
Well, that I got to jump in because just kind of going off of what Matt said, now you're turning that into a business. Remember, we're talking about a directory, right? You define the rules of a directory. You define the expectations about what a particular shop can expect with what, they're going to pay to be a part of this platform. I think right now you just build your credibility.
That's all I want to do.
Your brand voice.
Else, right.
I will say, this kind of goes off of what Matt's saying. If you're going to do a call-in show, you got to keep it moving. You've got 30 minutes. Yeah. Even if it's one topic, you have that emergency backup topic. If because Matt will get those phones lit.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't, man.
And sometimes they don't. Yeah. And so I think at the end of the day, you already have the experience, so you can talk on topics. The key is, why am I interrupting them, and how does that relate?
Why am I interrupting? That's a really good thought to give, because
because look, the fact is, and I'll beat it to. I look at it personally, because I'm really trying to grow. All things media, not just the TV or the platform we have, or radio or what have you. How am I wasting these people's time? I mean, I've had topics and so that's just the art of honing it in. Matt, I know it's not like you're listening to your shows every week. You do it, but in the beginning, and there's a lot of folks that are getting ready for the beginning, I imagine you may have overthunk it. You may have just beat yourself up. Why did I say it this way? Why did I say it that way? Right. Can you talk about that? What can you expect by way of maybe the butterflies, Matt? If you can remember. I know.
Well, first I want to say, on the radio, I would disagree with why am I interrupting. That's probably valid for social media and stuff. But the people, it's not why am I interrupting you? How am I going to keep you from changing the channel?
Well, that goes in line. Sure.
You're not barging into their living room. They're turning the radio on. You want to keep them engaged. So I don't think you're interrupting. I mean, it's got to be content that they somehow can relate to or engagement. Now, what was the second part there, Frank?
When you first started, for those that are jumping in, what were some of the things you had to get over? And if you had to do it all over, what would you have changed?
Well, first off, there's no do-over, so you just got to keep on talking. Frank, we've done the news and stuff. You can stop, you can start. They're going to clip it. They're going to edit it and stuff. But when you're on live radio is live radio or live TV. You just got to keep going. So that's one thing. Another is, we've had problems in the studio. You got your headset on. You don't know if it's actually being broadcast. It doesn't matter. Just keep on talking. Because if you think it's not, it probably is. I mean, we've had a couple times where the antenna went down or we're getting feedback, but I didn't know the show was going or not going. I didn't think it was, and it was. So you just got to keep. If you think you're talking to the wall, just keep on talking. But we definitely overthought it. For us, it was a little more. For me, it was a little more intimidating when I started. I mean, you're going into this big radio station. They've got the morning traffic, the morning drive. It's all news, ABC affiliate, a lot of things happening. But I mean, I think you just overthink it. I used to go at 9 o'clock. I used to do a co-host with somebody, and we like 2 hours before the show, we're writing down all these notes and we throw all that crap out the window eventually. But my biggest thing is, if you have time limits, you want to have your schedule laid out. Like I come in and I write down 13:30, 27:50, 43, and 57:50. Those are all my break times.
Okay.
And there's clocks going, so you've got to be able to monitor that. I used to sit down with the iPhone. Dave and I would sit down with the iPhone and have the timer going and pretend we're doing a show, trying to make the time. Make sure we're on time and talking and not having any dead space. So I would say bullet points. You don't overthink it. If you have to take 2 breaks, it sounds like one for a commercial and then one for the end of the show. And you want to, know what your backup times are. I ask Frank, I go down to the last second sometimes. You want to build some buffer in there. Keep it to bullet points. Don't read a script or read anything. It's got to be natural. And just have your notes and always have that evergreen material. You always got to have something. Again, just remember, theater of the mind. They can't
Yep.
see you; they can only hear you. So you've got to have that work order that you can pull out, or that one story to talk about, or something happening. But just don't overthink it, I guess, Frank, would be my biggest thing, and just be confident and just go for it.
Let me ask you guys this now. It's 30 minutes. Well, technically 23. When would you realize that, hey, maybe this thing's got legs for 60?
When you're running out of time to talk about what you want to talk about, or is the station a call-in type of station?
Oh, it can be. I mean, I could be a live situation if I wanted to be. I got the options.
Yeah, the audience will let you know, I think.
Yeah, I think the audience will, I would encourage you to do it live. Get on there, be real, make the mistakes with them, invite them to call in and get their feedback. Because, again, if it's just pre-recorded, maybe they're not going to get out what they want. But if they have an opportunity to ask an expert a question, you want to make yourself available to them. So,
I like that idea, too.
Yeah, I mean, I would be on there inviting phone calls and doing that. I would tend not to do the pre-recorded in the beginning. I would commit to being there and doing it and asking them to call you, and then that will then dictate how the show goes. Now, as far as the setup, again, if you have people that are getting left on hold, or they're starting to get popular, or they're calling the station after the fact, or wanting to call in, that would be probably the biggest indicator right there, what the feedback is from the listenership, or even from the station themselves.
It's just difficult. I took this slot because I can go to the studio to record. Me being live at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning is just not doable for me. I mean, it's just
it's a commitment. It's a commitment. I mean, that's the other thing we don't talk about.
The click and clack guys.
Yeah, it is a commitment for being live.
Go ahead, Matt.
I've done it before back in the day.
I was going to say, for Greg, if it's not live, then you can. I mean, we do I've only done a couple of pre-records for the show, but I would think that makes it much easier that you can. And if you're not set on your break times, you might be able to. My opening thing is about 10, 11 minutes roughly. So if you did your opening in, less than 10 minutes, I don't know where you have to take your break, if there's a forced break on the side, or if it can be a little bit early. Because you might get a little bit long on the tooth on that first segment, and then that second segment for you is going to go like nothing. It'll be fast.
Right. Yeah.
So for the beginning, if you can't commit to being there, I would do a short first segment, and then at least be able to have in like 2 different kinds of topics, and invite like Dave Ramsey, for example, and the Click and Clack guys. Those were not live. Those, even though Dave Ramsey's live, it's not live. Those calls are pre-scheduled phone calls.
Right.
So you could probably have a little bit of that. I guess if I was going to do it and didn't have the phone calls, and I had 30 minutes or 23, I might do, let's assume you come on at 3 minutes after the hour. I'd be out of there by 10 minutes, 10 or 11. And then that gives you 13 more minutes, maybe. You could cover maybe 3 kind of quote phone calls, or when we've done pre-records, I did it back when I had a partner in the day doing it with me, but we had, Sally wrote in and she asked this question, and then we would beat it up for 3 or 4 minutes and do 2 or 3 of those. So that's how I would probably start it out. If you're not going to be there, do that, and then that way you're controlling the information. You can get out there what you think 2 or 3 of the most popular things are to get people to want to listen, and then maybe invite them to call the shop and ask you questions.
I was going to say you could actually make a social media thing about the questions. Ask Greg and we'll answer it live on the air, that kind of, or on the air.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I was just going to say, as a part of our series right now, we're talking to the bones about radio. We're going to touch upon podcasts. In fact, we'll touch on it a little bit before we disconnect all here on this one, but we'll really get heavy on the podcast, which is our next part of the series. And then the last part of this series, before or after TV, will be social media. And Jeff will probably lean on you a little bit more. And I've got a few others that'll be here. But Greg, you were saying, so 30 minutes. I think to answer your question about do I go an hour, own 30 minutes and see how, see as Jeff and Matt said.
Oh, I plan on it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm not here to go an hour right away. This is all like a beta situation for me. Is it going to be effective? Am I going to be able to make that commitment? Am I going to have the right strategy?
Will
and
you
right
enjoy
talking
it?
points?
Yes, Jeff.
I will enjoy it.
Yeah, I know he will.
Yeah, that's
I
a
just
really
wanted to
good
make sure we
point.
know it is about you enjoying it too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I do enjoy it. I mean, my mission is now to be more as a voice, and I think that with my capabilities, I want to be able to explore this, and at the same time, yes, I want to build a business. I want to have us as a known brand from the top of the state to the bottom of the state, and this is one way that I feel. Like I said, the station that I'm on covers 3/4 of the state terrestrially. The remaining portion, the remaining quarter of the state, is via their app, which has great penetration down in the shore area or the beach area where my second location is. So with, like you explained, Frank, with the guys at the counter giving out the QR codes and letting it run and putting it out there, I
on
really
your
want to build
phone
this brand
messaging. I mean,
everywhere.
yeah, I mean, I think that 30 minutes, own the content, every bit of it,
Own the content.
and repurpose it. I know we didn't get into a whole lot of that now, but as repurposable as it can be equals what's this sound like on a podcast. Now, you may not have huge numbers on podcast, but what you're doing is you're parlaying it digitally. And we're going to get more into that when we do our podcast side. Before we wrap it up, Matt Allen, I got to ask you the do's and don'ts. I know you mentioned a couple of things, and you basically said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. Because the don't was don't overthink it.
I know, right?
Analysis paralysis. Yeah. So I don't see Greg maybe having that problem, but I just want to let folks know that are viewing or listening to this, it's okay to have, sort of the butterflies. I mean, it's like anything we do in life. It's okay. It's part of the process, but get back to a streamlined template. What are you doing lately, Matt, that really works? And it's like, repeat, redo it. This is working. Can you talk about what are some of the things you're doing that are successful for radio?
During the show, you mean?
Yeah, if I can ask that. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest hook, I mean, I can always tell, sometimes if I know I'm having an off day, it can come in. I just know it translates through the radio. So you've got to go in clear-minded, positive. And again, I think the biggest thing is having a hook in the beginning, because I disagree. You're not interrupting them. You're trying to keep them. They're there. I don't want you to change the radio station. So when this guy comes on the radio, your opening segment, you've got to have a tag on or something that tells them, don't change the station. These guys are going to talk about something fear of missing out. You want them to get the FOMO. Go back and listen to mine on the website. I mean, my typical spiel is the same thing. I could do it right now. It's like, good morning, welcome to Bumper Radio. I'm your host, Matt Allen. I'm the KTAR car guy. That's the call sign for the station. And we're here with you every Saturday from 11 to noon to help you with your car. Whether you've got a question about an oil change or repair, or maybe you went in for that recall and got a big list of items that they say you need, we can talk about that. But it's really anything you want to talk about. And then you give out the phone number, you ask for the engagement, and then I start talking about something.
But you see what you just did, Greg. Big deal is and Matt, it's secondary, but it's theater of the mind. I'm actually going to throw out a couple of scenarios that relate to, that radiator cap popped off, the tire keeps going low, that, all of that, as opposed to we're going to talk about tires and things you can do to maintain them. Radio is absolutely theater of the mind that way. And so anything that you translate in your bullet points, let's say there's 2 points that you're talking about, under those 2 points, what are the relatables to the demo that I'm speaking to? Right. Until it becomes secondary.
Yeah. And again, you got to try and broaden it, because you have a huge audience. And if they think you're talking about one thing off, I'm not interested in tires today. Maybe. So again, for me anyway, it's an hour show. It's a little bit different, but I'm inviting them to call. So I always say, it's your show. I'm here to help you. So I'm going to talk about this today, but we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. So that way you're including, not excluding anybody at all.
Right. Okay. Great.
That would be my biggest stuff.
Jeff Rudnick, Pit Crew. I'm going to bring you on. I'd like to have you on maybe on the social media side. Can you just, as we wrap this up, just hit upon some of the things that his team can do to help him promote? You mentioned community's big. We know that Greg's going to have the community announcements, his marketing calendar, all those moving parts. He's going to take advantage of the broadcast radio there for his shop. Anything that you've seen of success, let's talk about exit marketing of this show as his service riders are wrapping up the service ticket and collecting money. How do you see that exit marketed to clients that come in?
Probably didn't prep you a ton, but I haven't done a lot of that stuff that you're talking about. I really specialize in getting his message out to his community in terms of his rewards program and his unique selling points. But I do have some experience in what you're talking about. And I think it's really important that you, as you're recording all these things, that you take all the gold that you record and you put that into your blog. You have that available on your website and you promote that on your social media. And at the shop itself, this is just something that Greg's Japanese Auto did. And it's just, I don't know if you ever did this, Frank, or if you've done this, Matt. Have you checked what radio stations people are listening to?
Yeah, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Yeah, that's an occasional thing to determine. Yeah, where do they listen to? What are the people tuning in that are coming in to the shop? Yeah.
Just as you get better at what you're doing and you develop your voice and you have some options. I know Greg switched stations at one point because they're like, wow, there's so many more people listening over here. That's just a thought that I had. They had their technicians log all that.
Right. Greg, one other thing that you should probably do is talk to the station and you need to try and become a guest on one of their Monday through Fridays, maybe the morning drive time.
Right.
They can get you in there and they can gin up this new automotive.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
They've got for their listeners. Yep. And they should even promote it for you Monday through Friday. There should be something to, hey, tune into this new show we've got at, W, whatever it is, W Delaware. And, yeah, okay, good guess. So, yeah, WDEL, we've got Greg Buckley, a local automotive expert, with a new show of, under Greg's hood on every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock and get them to try and drive some traffic your direction and be a guest on one of their shows as well.
Well, here's a question, and I think it might reach the audience, and I had bouts with it too, but how do you become comfortable with calling yourself the auto expert? When
you are, aren't you?
I am, but it's a matter of really diving into that statement. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Don't you think, Greg, that you're comfortable talking on any topic regarding maintaining a vehicle? You are an expert. You got to own that for sure.
Yeah, you gotta have a little attitude about it. I mean, you're as good as anybody else. So
if they can stump you, it's going to be odd.
True.
Well, and
I get it. Yeah.
That's the other thing. Don't always have to have the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. That's why we can't diagnose over the phone too. I give you some good ideas.
There you go. And you're right to that. I like that.
And
quick thinking right there.
And that's one of the things too that, again, you should go listen to my show. I mean, really, just listen to the first 15 minutes. Sometimes a few of those, and see how they go. Just see what that opening is like to get the engagement.
Absolutely, yeah, I will. I'll take in all the advice you guys are giving me. It's great because I have done live radio before. It was back in the 2000s. We had the service station radio hour. We were actually doing radio live with two co-hosts and myself for an hour, and we were actually raw streaming on the web at the same time. It was the first things out there, and it was well received, but we just couldn't hold it. We just couldn't keep it going because of the time. I had a producer that would like you just said, bring you in 2 days ahead of time. You got 2 hours of prep time. You got to be ready for the guests and the interviews. He was a real stickler. He was a real disciplinarian is what he was. But the show always came out well done. But
it's going to take work, Greg, and you the consistency of it. And I think Matt will agree to this. You may want to consider getting the audience comfortable with the potential of a co-host. That's got to be synchronized. Because I agree with Matt, you can't treat this as podcasty first. That can be secondary later.
No, you're right.
But to just give you that break with all that happens in life, with that. The other thing I want to add before we break here, man, if you can negotiate, this kind of goes off the points that Matt is bringing up, getting some of the heavyweights during the morning hour to help, generate some buzz for the show. But I'll tell you right now, if you can help. And Matt, I think they still do remotes with the Comrex. It may have changed technology-wise, but man, if I can get the station to show up live and do a live feature of a big community event, I mean, certainly you can tape it, but it's nothing like having that live with a Comrex. I would be interested in maybe this package and having some of those extra bells and whistles, even for reduced price, because again, and this goes off of what Jeff says. Look, you're fixing cars. You're good at what you do, but really the heartbeat of everything we all do is community. And so if I've got these community gigs coming up, how can I get the station to help me parlay? And then I tie in a charitable, and you guys need to come down, and we're doing this, and we're throwing wiper blades in, sign the pledge. And, this is just brand awareness and using that through radio. So think about that deeper about how, I know it's only 30 minutes, and they may not leverage you a whole lot of, throw-ins.
I get it. Yeah.
But ask for that sale, because those remotes can be done really well. So, and it helps with everything. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you, Matt Allen, Bumper to Bumper Radio. If you guys are listening to this in Phoenix or San Diego, you can catch it online. Matt, you're a true professional, my friend. I'll come and see you. Thank you for joining and giving us some of your tips and wisdom there, Matt.
You're welcome. And Greg, anytime you can get my contact info from Frank or send me a message through Facebook, I'd jump on the phone with you.
I appreciate it. Really do.
Play around a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Jeff, always good to see you.
Really nice to see you again as well, Matt.
It's been a minute.
Absolutely. I'll swing by when I'm down there in November.
Right. Okay.
And Jeff, thanks for joining us as well. Greg, we'll all stay in touch. And if you're watching this or listening to this, reach out to us. We're never too busy to try and get you guys some tips. This is the first part of our sort of broadcast medium series, this covering radio. There could have been a whole lot more, but hopefully we get you a lot of information to get started. Please reach out. Our next series is going to jump right in. I know I had TV, but just to make sense, part 2 would be podcast. So if you got that radio and you want to tie in, how do I successfully do the podcast thing? Or I'm just doing podcasting. How can I take podcasting and really make that gain legs? And as Matt said, get business that we're looking for, our type of business that we're looking for. And that's a whole session in itself. So I thank you all for joining. If you've caught this on a replay and you're not part of our service life, join our group. We're all helping each other out as best we can. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.